So welcome everyone to today's webinar, Sales Manager for Fire Contractors, a live look at the full sales workflow. So today we're going to walk through the impact Sales Manager can have for everybody who touches sales contracts at your company, from salespeople, leadership, and service team members. Some quick housekeeping. So please ask questions anytime in the chat. There's people who will be available from the ServiceTrade team to answer questions throughout, or we'll answer live in a live Q&A at the end. There'll also be a short survey at the end, so please take a minute or two after we're done with the webinar to answer a couple of quick questions for us. And we really appreciate any kind of feedback there. So, some introductions. So, hi everybody. My name is Manny Morales, VP of Product here at ServiceTrade, and I'm joined by a solutions architect here at ServiceTrade, Derek Torres. Derek's a longtime service trader with deep knowledge of all of our products. He'll be walking you through how easy it is to create a proposal in Sales Manager and hand it off to service teams in just a few clicks. So first, let's take a step back and let's talk about the sales problem in Fire and how it affects everyone who touches contracts, again, from sales teams to service teams. So first things first, we're going to start with a live poll to kind of help me understand what your teams are doing today. So how does your team today create new sales contracts? Is that by hand, spreadsheets and Word documents, custom built software, external specialized sales type of software, or do you currently not do any kind of bidding on new contracts yet? I'll give everybody about 10 more seconds. Good mix of people, good mix of things, a lot of spreadsheets. We'll be talking a lot about spreadsheets, so it's good. Okay, cool. So about half of people mentioned spreadsheets, with the second leading factor being either by hand or external specialized sales type of software, with some people working with custom built things or other. Awesome. Thanks for the context. So with that, let me go ahead and close out. Cool. So with that, in our past research, surveys, and conversations we've had in the past, there's a few problems with the old way of selling fire. One of them is siloed data. There's lots of people who might be involved with contracts. And here's the risk of the siloed data. You have the tech who does a site survey. You have the salesperson that's generating the deal. You have the back and forth with management where might have a sales manager or an executive reviewing a deal. And eventually that gets handed off to the service team. So there's lots of people who are touching these sales contracts and sometimes managing that all in different places. And some of those places might be email, notebooks, spreadsheets, file cabinets, or siloed out softwares where they just do that one thing. And every time information needs to actually change hands, someone is like typing, texting, calling to transfer that information to somebody else or a different system. So this all leads to different teams managing separate records and needing to hope that that information actually makes it correctly from one place to another. And we all know hope is not a very good business strategy or process. The second problem with the old way of selling fire contracts is static spreadsheets. In a world of spreadsheets, each rep builds pricing from scratch. They're using some Excel template that has some pricing calculator and attaching all that information, typing that in to a Word document or something. There's no easy way for a leadership team to broadly update those rate tables for the whole team. There's no way to put in pricing guardrails for particular contracts, particular customers. And even worse, what happens when reps need to share pricing or a proposal for approval or feedback? You're emailing Excel files back and forth, and all it takes is one incorrect save, an overwrite, or a wrong file to get sent to lead to mistakes where it creates chaos down the line for your customer and your service teams. Problem three is unprofessional and inconsistent proposals. Spreadsheet and Word exports don't reflect your team's quality. Facility managers compare proposals side by side when looking at different companies, and sometimes that inconsistent formatting could affect your likelihood to win before the conversation even begins. So switching gears a little bit, what does a winning process look like, right? The first thing that comes to mind is pipeline visibility, where every lead and opportunity gets tracked end to end. Leaders see all the activity that's happening, the velocity of those opportunities and those deals, And you can forecast without needing to actually look and ask for an update. You know which deals and which reps and which customers actually need attention. The second part of a winning process is fast, consistent proposals, where every rep quotes from the same pricing tables, margin requirements are built into salespeople's workflows, and they're consistent across job types where they need to be. So building a sales process is also important for how quickly you can bring in strong salespeople who might not even be from the trades. And anecdotally, we actually have a customer we're working with right now on a customer story where they were able to hire a like specialized salesperson that was not from the trades. And in their first year, they were able to generate over 1 million in contract revenue for their business with SalesManager. Lastly, professional output. Branded structured proposals a facility manager can approve and pass to their finance people. So it's really easy when it gets from your sales team to the customer, they can go ahead and approve and hand out to their finance teams. Where you can have things like multi-year contracts have margins built in. You think about formatting for e-signature. So you don't have to think about doing things like printing, scanning, and chasing down paperwork. You can sign and close the proposal from the proposal itself. And honestly, I think the most critical part people forget about when talking about the sales process is how all that information actually gets from the contract and the sales team over to the service team. That handoff is part of the sale. For salespeople, if you sell a deal and the service team doesn't meet the term signed, that might affect your commission or your ability to actually sell future opportunities to that customer or their network. Because as we all know, in the trades, everybody talks. For service managers, a bad sales to service handoff could mean messy information that leads to chaos later on in the scheduling or the service process. So we talked about the risks of the old ways. Now let's talk about the cost of that siloed data, those static spreadsheets, and those unprofessional proposals. There's costs that don't show up in the spreadsheet, right? You have a scale ceiling. You can't grow beyond your veterans, and you're depending on them for their knowledge of the industry or their workflows. What happens when they retire? As we all know, many people in the trades are going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. You have sales leadership that kind of flies blind. They don't know what's happening with deals, reps are on the wrong deals, and you can't see it until it might be too late. And lastly, service teams are inheriting those problems, right? Down the line, where then need to manage and handle that chaos when it comes to the day of dispatch to go and service something, service a project, service a job, or dealing with the customer when they go on site. What about wasted time costs, right? In surveys we did before, people were entering in the same information 7 to 8 times in the sales process. It's a lot of wasted time, and I'm actually going to show that visually in a second. People were spending over 4 hours on a single location proposal. That's a long time to be spending on a single proposal that should only take 20 minutes. And when you account for all of that time wasting and risk for errors typing in the same information at a real cost of about 15% to a company's margin. So what does that manual process look like for some companies? So this is an example of a manual process that we've actually heard from people we've talked to. It might even look familiar to some of you. There's the initial call to send someone on site. Then there's the site survey where someone writes something down. Then someone else takes that and puts it into a spreadsheet for pricing. And then they take that pricing, whatever their spreadsheet calculator spits out, they put that information into a proposal builder, a Word document, whatever it might be. Then they put that into their CRM to actually track that opportunity. Then they're revising that proposal with their team internally. Then it gets won, and you take that information and pass it on to a tool for the service team. And that field service team takes that and sets up the information in their workflow. And then if you use ServiceTrade, it lands as a ServiceTrade job. That's a lot of time wasting and a lot of room for error. And that's real margin cost for your business that doesn't really show up right away until you really dig in. So, what does a clean sales to service handoff look like with SalesManager and ServiceTrade? It's kind of something like this. A site survey gets done, a deficiency gets identified in ServiceTrade, the information automatically creates an opportunity. The salesperson identifies the assets and the labor with particular rates needed for that proposal. And after a few clicks, when the proposal gets sent, signed, and the deal is won, with a few clicks, You push all that information over into ServiceTrade and the structure the service team needs to work that job as early as the same day. There's almost no room for errors, no time wasting, and a much smoother process. So with that, we're going to actually kind of see that come to life a little bit here. I'm going to pass the screen over to Derek, who's going to walk us through a typical sales manager workflow. And I will stop my share. Pass it over to you, Derek.
Hello, thank you. Let me get the share going and we'll kick it off. All right, just to confirm, Manny, you seeing my screen, my mouse moving?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, so first thing I want to do is just orient you as sales manager, what it is, what it does. I think Manny did a really good job talking about the value, but now we're looking at the application. So the first page you land on is a dashboard. For those of you who use ServiceTrade, very similar. The first landing page is a dashboard. This dashboard is purpose built for sales leaders and sales users to track your pipeline and where it's at. And this gives a general overview of what this application does at its core. It is a CRM, or what we call a customer relationship management software. And this highlights that you have opportunity stages, all the different things that you can see across those, like your different proposal types with their close rates and their amounts for a certain plan year. You can dig into your forecasting and where you'll be in the next 60, 90, 180 days. You can see your individual sales users and where they're at with proposed and sold. So I'm tracking my close rates. I have visibility. And then those opportunities, just like if you're familiar, if you, any of you ever seen a Salesforce or a Monday.com or a HubSpot, you can track sales activity, which is notes, files, feedback on your conversations with your prospects. So as you see, I'm actually having metrics on numbers of emails sent, reaches out to LinkedIn, surveys that we've done, literature that we've sent out. And I'm also getting visibility across my sales stages. And this can be honed in at scale. So if you have a lot of offices across a bunch of different branches and a lot of different sales users, it can be that complex and different people can have different view across all of these things. And then there's also sales incentives where you can set up in the background things like a fiscal plan year for what you intend to sell and quarterly goals down to each individual sales user, and even incentive payments baked into the system that both they and you can track if you choose to use that. So, what does the opportunity look like though? What's the visualization of that? So, let's take a look at this page, which I think highlights your sales stages and all of your opportunities out in the ecosystem. Here I have a bunch of different opportunities with different salespeople that I can see right here, and they're moving through their different sales life cycles. And you can customize these stages however you see fit, and proposals and opportunities move through sales cycles naturally. And if we click into this one, you start to get a picture of all the things you're able to track, right? The different stages, probability of forecasting, sales credits, notifications to different users, and that critical activity timeline of all the stuff that we need to track during this opportunity. But this is only one piece of the puzzle. Manny wasn't presenting on a need for tracking activity. As much as this is nice to have and awesome to know what your team is doing, a lot of what we were talking about was the struggle to configure, price, and quote these inspection proposals. So this is the glue that binds this whole system. But let's back up and go through the day in the life of going from lead to spinning up a proposal to getting it into the customer's hands and then getting that handed off to service. So as you see here, we're gonna potentially add additional step in this for some of you. We're gonna start with leads. So I'm gonna jump over to our leads list here. And what this is useful for any of you who do cold call sort of prospecting. You might have representatives, you might get a list of leads from somewhere, be it added one by one or via import. The system can support both of those things. And the key thing here is I can assign it to my different organizations, divisions, and I can assign it to individual reps. And this can be a whole function of looking through leads, calling, reaching out, and going to the next step. So I'm going to start with leads, but we will pick it up if you don't do this, if you just go straight to proposal. Okay. So in this scenario, I'm a rep who's cold calling Barbara over at this Miller office park. And if you see here, I started collecting information about Barbara, her phone number, her title, things like where we're at with them, what industry, how many employees they have. I'm just doing the work of collecting the information. And then as I've reached out to Barbara, I am recording all of that as I moved on. And this is showing I did a status update that I reached out on LinkedIn. I got in touch with her via email, in which case Barbara did respond that she's interested in a sprinkler alarm and an extinguisher inspection. And at this stage, I also decided to set up an event that I wanted to have a calendar reminder and a calendar event sent directly to my calendar that I was able to set up here. And I was able to notify Kevin, who is a coworker of mine, that he needed to do something on a particular date to make this work, specifically go out and survey our assets. And just so you can see in real time how easy it is to record activity, I can just hit this for quick status updates, type notes, and add them, and set up reminders where I point them towards specific users, put it into their user notifications so they get instant emails and in-app notifications, or even set up calendar events like this and send them to those contacts out in the real world. But once we get to a certain point with leads, we want to move them to the next stage and convert them to be true prospects that we are going to be building proposals for. And that action is as simple as this convert button, where we'll just answer a couple of questions and then we're on to the next step. This will turn your lead into a customer where we can build that proposal and opportunity. Now, I'm going to pause here because some of you don't do this. I know not all sales organizations have reps who are doing lead list. So I'm going to back up and I'm going to go to a converted location because you might already have a bunch of existing ServiceTrade locations that are automatically brought into SalesManager. And here they are sitting in the system. And as you see, locations, just like leads, will carry over all of the activity that we've recorded. But the biggest difference here is that they can contain opportunities and those proposals. So this has now been converted to proposal stage. So as you see, I can simply hit new maintenance inspection or come up here and hit new maintenance and inspection and get started. So I'm going to do it straight from here. And this is the first step of creating a proposal and an opportunity all in one. So initially, I just have to enter in some basic information like what am I going to call this proposal? I'll call it example for this webinar. Now, these next menu options, I'm going to sort of reverse engineer. I'm not going to quite answer exactly what these do now because it would spend too much time explaining system settings in the background. But essentially, I'm just dialing in my pricing based on certain things, right? Maybe a different office can charge different rates, right? Or maybe I have a discount rate or a higher tier rate, however we want to set it up. The system also takes into account drive times and how many trip charges we potentially need, depending on how you calculate that in the system. And it also attempts to figure out the age of equipment. Okay, so I enter in the basic customer information, location customers flowed over, and now it's time to capture the asset data. Now, if you're an existing service trade customer, you can actually just bring in your service trade assets straight into this proposal. So if this is an existing customer and you just wanted to bring in some existing assets to do a proposal, they're all right here in the system. But let's go ahead and add a single asset one by one to start. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new asset because this is going to give you a picture of what you are looking to enter in for equipment. Now, oftentimes in the fire space, we're mostly just like in alarms, we're looking for quantity, how many fire extinguishers they have, or how many strobes are there, or how many pull stations are there. We're just doing basic counts. So in that scenario, as you see, I have a bunch of different out of the box assets in here, and selecting an alarm bell, I really only care about quantity. So I might be, hey, there's 25 of them, and I simply enter that. But there's other assets in the system, like a standpipe, that there might be some different layers of how I might want to price it, not just quantity. So I might take into account class one versus class two and three. And what is unique about Sales Manager is it also has what we call ratings. And so here I'm rating it by number of floors. So I'm going, hey, how many floors for this standpipe? That's going to help with my pricing. Now, you can enter them in one by one, like I'm showing you, but there's also a survey app that I'm not going to show you today. If you're interested in seeing the survey app and its full OCR capability, please follow up with this call. An SA like myself will gladly dig into a call specifically with you to show you all the other bells and whistles of Sales Manager. But the benefit of the survey app is I can go out, send someone out, take photos, or enter in the data, and I can simply import directly from a survey or a spreadsheet if a facility manager or client just gives you a spreadsheet to import in. And here is a list of all of my different surveys my team has gone out. And I actually, again, for Barbara, I want to price up alarm system, a sprinkler system inspection, an extinguisher, but she specifically wanted the pricing broken down by each system, right? So I'm going to bring in the alarm system here. And another powerful tool is I can group these things to show it on the proposal and price it out broken into pieces. So I'm going to rename my group here, alarm system. I'm going to add a group for sprinkler just so we have nice little sections, and extinguisher. And I don't think I made a typo. Yes. So I'm going to import in my sprinkler as well. And you can associate these with your specific groups or simply just add them right here to a specific group if you're just adding them one by one. And we'll go ahead and import in our extinguishers as well, since I already had those all preset up for this demo. Okay, so just to ground us on what we've done so far, because I did some explaining while we were doing it, is I entered in some basic information, I entered in the asset information, and now it's time to price it. So we're going to move to service pricing, and I'm going to explain what this menu is doing for you and your team. So at its most simple, it's looking to all those assets with stuff that I have set up in the background and all those ratings and quantities that we talked about. And it's saying, hey, these are the amount of hours we've calculated for your quarterly visits, your semi-annuals, and your annuals with a total of this many hours. But as we all know, we charge different rates for alarm system inspection and extinguisher and sprinkler inspection. Is it taking into account that? Well, if I expand this menu, you see, yep, it's looking at It's adding my time for my alarm system versus sprinkler versus fire extinguisher. And what it's doing for me is I have these different service programs. So some of you might just have a single rate for inspection. Some of you might do monitoring inspection. Some of you might do an inspection plus where you might get emergency service rates at a lower rate for having an agreement. That's what these represent. And as you see, I have different pricing based on these different programs. In your system, you can have one program, you can have many, and it's going to automatically pull my prices here. So, can I override? Can I make changes to these numbers? Because $4,921 is nice, but I'm up against a competitor. I need to bring it down. Yep, you can just come over here, override the price, and it will auto calculate your margin so you can see a comparison. Or if you're discounting based on margin, I can reverse engineer it and just type in the margin, and it will calculate my sales price based on my current cost. So there's a lot of other configuration you can do. You can override all sorts of things. Again, please reach out for a little more detail on that. We can dig into this all day. But once I hit save, now I have this price and I want to get that purpose built, ready to go proposal out into my customer's hands. So my assets are dialed in, my pricing's good, and now the last thing I need to do is just do some final agreement massaging. So nice to have here is I can put a cover photo directly into. I can put a cover photo in here just to make my agreement look a little more professional. And you'll see as well, it automatically pulled in all of my scope of work tasks that I'm going to do for that they're purchasing for inspection. And you're going to see how that auto populates into the agreement. So now I just need to dial in my agreement, set where I'm providing service, select the program that I'm doing, and you'll see the second I selected that program, it automatically filled in the agreement price. Now, if you see, it's set up as a typical 1 year. And so I know a lot of folks do 1 years, but if you're looking into the world of doing multi-year agreements to solidify your ARR, what you can do is set a start date. Let's say it's going to start on July 1, and I can make it a 3-year term. But as you see, the danger of a 3-year term is I potentially need to bake in escalations, maybe 2 or 3% year over year to continue to make this profitable. So if I want to have tiered agreement multi-year escalation, you can set that up in the system as well, where it's automatically going to go, hey, here is your yearly price, here's your total over 3 years, and here's your bill to. Speaking of billing, some of us bill upon completion, some of us bill quarterly, annually, so you can also dial that into the system. So as you see here, it's setting it for monthly, but I can change it to quarterly. It will automatically calculate that here and across my multi-year escalation. So again, to ground us, we entered in some basic information about the customer. We pulled the asset information in. It auto-priced it. We dialed in the agreement. We saved it. And this is where that opportunity management becomes incredibly handy because in my system, I have it set up to automatically tell my sales team, hey, you're at proposal stage. What I want you to do is put a probability of selling, and I'm going to force you also to put a projected close date for my forecasting. I want to know what our pipeline looks like. So I just force them to answer that since they're at the proposal stage. And now the sales rep can print the proposal. And this is important because a lot of you likely have Word documents sitting in different places. So if you're remembering things we're replacing, you have potentially spreadsheets or proprietary software pricing it. And then you have to take that pricing, and usually what I see is versions of going into Word doc templates, copying that pricing into the Word doc templates, making adjustments, sending it back and forth, and then getting it out to the customer. What this page is doing is it's going, hey, for your test and inspect, we know you use these Word doc templates, and we're going to autofill them for you. So let's watch that happen in real time. So this is how I have it set up at my company. I have a cover page that automatically populates with my brand logo, company logo that I put in, and then all of the proposal information for the cover photo. I'd like to put this letter to my customers, an executive summary of why to choose us. So I just put this on every proposal. But where some real time saving starts to come in is also things like your scope of works. Because I added a fire alarm, an extinguisher, and a sprinkler, it knew from my system settings, pull in those scope of works directly into this. Perfect. No editing, just ready to go. I have a service team. This is something I just like to include on every page. And then here is that agreement page where all those options where I was dialing in for it's going to be a 3-year with multi-escalation, it automatically populated that. T's and C's are again something I need to always include, and they're going to be there for you. But here's where some other advanced things are really cool with this system. One of the reasons I grouped my systems is because Barbara wanted me to break down the cost of the alarm system, sprinkler, extinguisher independently. Well, I can set that up in the system to show it that way. I can also send them an asset inventory. So hey, this is what we surveyed. So make sure this looks right. And you can even send over an inspection schedule to them so they know what to expect for all the different equipment. And finally, if you so choose, you can also include pictures that you took in the survey app. So I went in and printed this, right? Or I saved a PDF or I saved a file to the agreement. That's nice, but I'm still an email, right? So you would probably expect, can I email this directly from the system? Absolutely. But even better is I can send an e-sign email directly from the system. So once I click this, I'm just going to sort of fast track to e-sign is that this is what we can set up and send to one of our customers. So baked in e-sign on the document that was generated, and I can send it request and signed, even add an additional person like Manny, and we go ahead and hit send. And what's awesome is that I also now have in-app notifications and email notifications and visibility for all my different proposals for me specifically on some that are in draft, some that are out for signature. And as you see, we just closed one today or yesterday. So boom, we got a sign. Okay, so we just closed this. And we just closed it, and now we're getting to the point of that sales to service handoff, which, as Manny was speaking about, is a lot of emails to other people, them looking through documents and re-entering into your field service software in hopes that nothing gets missed in the third time we've done data entry, right? That story that's old as time. So if you are a ServiceTrade customer and you were to add SalesManager to your software ecosystem, what this allows for you is to simply click a button to send all the information over. Now, there's a couple questions that you answer along the way based on service setup and your recurring invoice setup and your contract setup and your asset setup. But the key takeaway here is it's going to send all the assets. It's going to send the contract, which is the glue that binds your agreement. It's going to send the recurring invoice so you have those recurring invoice schedules rolling and automated if you so choose. And it's going to send over the recurring service at a highly detailed, broken down level. And you're even seeing here, it's saying, hey, I'm going to send over 6. And that's because I set up in my system for it to send over based on all the work provided and the different kinds of work we're going to do. Because I might send a different tech out for my sprinklers versus my alarm versus my fire alarm. So I've actually already done the send over just because you didn't need to click a couple buttons here. So I'm going to show you in ServiceTrade what came over. So some of you might be new to ServiceTrade. This is a service location where all of the records go. And as you see, this came over with the company information, the location information, my contacts, what office. It brought over all of the assets that I surveyed and the details that I captured in that. It brought over my recurring service schedule, and you see it brought it over to a detailed level that's taking into account some of the complexities we all fight with setting up automated schedules. Because even though you can set up a recurring service as a quarterly, we all know that quarterlies kind of actually happen 2 times a year. So if you set it up right, you set it up as a semi-annual. Well, guess what? The system knew to do all of that. And why that's critical is because when I go to bulk job create or bulk invoice create using our service opportunities bulk job creator, you see I'm searching for jobs due next month for my Ocala office in Florida, and there is the Betsy sitting right here, and I'm about to create one job for that. And the benefit there is if you see it's taking into account, hey, we have all these different lines of work we need to do. Do you want to just book a single work order for them? Or since I have preferred technician, date and time automatically pulling out my estimated price, do I want to separate these and have a separate work order for my alarm system or portable? It gives you all this optionality, but it also helps you streamline and combine your service work so you're not doing multiple trips when you could have just done one. So I think this is a good time to pause, stop, and pass it back to Manny.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. That was great to see. Give me 1 second to get the share back over here again. All right. Can you see my screen again, Derek? Awesome. Cool. So Derek didn't show some of that setup again that we kind of talked about, but the point is that sales and business leaders have the control in Sales Manager, right? You can create the right rating tables that allow for that structured pricing based on your price book. So it's an evolution of your spreadsheets that you might have today into organized software that every team can work on, right? And there's built-in service intervals in all of that, right? We can build them out for a specific type of job. You can add in pricing guardrails to make sure you achieve a certain profit on the job. As you saw, Derek did a little bit there too. You can add in specific price increases for multi-year agreements. And again, you can systematize all of that and build them so your reps are all using the same amounts. And there's a lot more other things we didn't show, which includes the app that Derek was talking about to capture some of that field information. There's also parts of the product that allow you to actually help your customers with asset planning and more. So if you want to learn more about Sales Manager in a more specific way for your business and how Sales Manager kind of fits in, let us know. And we can set up a personal demo with Derek or one of our other SAs on our team. So a little bit about what's coming next. We talked about the value. We saw what it looks like today in practice from a workflow perspective. What's coming next? So there's a few very exciting things, very imminent on our roadmap and what we're working on next. The first one is multi-GC bid management. So if you do a lot of construction work, let's say, for example, you want to bid on a hospital that's going to get built, and there are 5 general contractors who are bidding on that hospital, and you're trying to set out a bid to each of those 5 GCs bidding, you can actually, within Sales Manager, very soon, create that as a single proposal that will be unique to each of those 5 general contractors. So instead of needing to create 5 different proposals, again, that duplicate work we're trying to get rid of, and or inflating your pipeline, where all of a sudden, instead of if it's $1 million project, it'll look like 5 million in your pipeline, whereas it's actually only 1 million if the GC wins that deal and then you win that bid. You can track all of that as a single proposal, and it'll be customized for the different audiences. And again, making sure your pipeline looks clean, there's no duplicate work, and you're setting things out in a structured, consistent, professional way. The second thing on our roadmap is asset intelligence. So ServiceTrade has almost 50 million in assets and over 15 years of data in our database. So we're going to be bringing like a lot of that asset information in a predictive insight type way to people who are using Sales Manager. So we'll be able to help you build out your proposal in terms of recommended service actions, pricing terms, and more. API integrations. That is, how does Sales Manager connect to other companies? Other softwares. We very much believe that we want Sales Manager to fit into any company's tech stack. So if you might use a particular software for a CRM, for example, or a lead management software, Sales Manager already has API connections to those types of softwares. And in Q3, we're working on connecting to other kind of project management and field service softwares that exist out there other than just ServiceTrade. And lastly, Stella Cell. So ServiceTrade's focus on building out agentic AI solutions to support every part of the commercial trades. Stella is going to help your sales teams by doing the majority of that duplicate and hard work in creating contracts. So your salespeople can actually focus more on like the refining of the contract and getting things over to the end customer, and also focusing on the higher impact, higher margin opportunities and customers. So a lot of that workflow that Derek was talking about, there's some things that are a little bit repetitive or, tend to be things that a agentic AI can go ahead and help with. And so again, what that's going to mean is your reps can actually get to more proposals out faster. So we saw all of this, kind of talked about it. We saw it live in action, and we saw some of the roadmap. As we kind of like wrap up, I just kind of want to go through why summer 2026 is the right time to start with Sales Manager. To recap, sales teams can see 50 to 80% faster proposals. And we've seen that with customers pre-sales manager and into sales manager. You can eliminate that 7 to 8 time manual reentry that someone's doing in notebooks and spreadsheets and Word documents and other systems. You can cut down the proposal creation process from 4 hours to minutes, as we just saw Derek actually do live on this call. And what that's going to mean for your business is a 15% margin improvement. Again, that's where you can really begin to win against your competitors and boost your profits is in the margins like that. And for service managers and service teams, right, you can actually go, and we saw this with Derek, you can actually build out jobs based off new contracts very quickly. You're going to see 25% higher gross margins on pull-through work. And you're going to get clean scope and asset data on day one of getting a new contract. So you could go service a project on day one of getting a contract signed. So one more poll question for y'all before we go over into Q&A. What outcome did you hear today that excited you most? I'll give it 20 seconds. Awesome. It looks like a lot of people liked all of it, which is great. I'm glad. And after that, about simplifying the sales to service handoff. And again, that is also my favorite thing to see when Derek showcases this, 'cause that's a really missed part about strong CRM and sales proposal creation softwares that exist is great. You were able to create the contract. How does that actually land in service team's hands, right? And so that handoff is really, really important. And it's a really important part of what Sales Manager can offer and what Sales Manager and ServiceTrade do really well together. So let me go ahead and go to my next slide here of Q&A. So now we'll just open it up for a few questions. I think Garrett is going to help facilitate some of that, and Derek or I will answer some of them. Hey,
Excellent.
Garrett.
Yes, and hello. Anybody, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom. It helps us to kind of keep everything organized. All right, so the first question for either Manny or Derek. From earlier in the presentation, Derek, when you were showing the test and inspect proposal, what would it take to integrate client documents, a client tender package into that proposal, whether that's including the required documents, certificate of insurance, or workers' comp?
Yes. Actually, would it be possible to share my screen? I think this might be valuable to show to
Yeah.
tie it back to the demo.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love showing things live. Let's do it.
Yes. So, so taking you back in time, when there was that moment when I hit print proposal, and I talked about how out of the box I have these different inspection programs, and when I select them, it might auto check all of these different pages. These pages here are some of that system setting stuff that Manny was talking about, which are simple Word docs that you can import into the system settings and apply those autofill magic in them, which our implementation team is adept and will help you do that if you onboard with Sales Manager and get those into the system. But for a, hey, I selected test and inspect, but there's some special page that I need for a customer, it would just look like this and then print. And then that special page would show up on the document.
Great, great. Thank you. And so to clarify, the sales manager is going to be for contract building and executing before work is completed.
Sorry, repeat
Thank
that
you.
one again.
Yeah, it's just to clarify that the sales manager is intended to be for contract building and executing before work is completed.
Yeah. So what we showed today was the sales contracts. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be building out things like recurring services, as Derek showed some of the inspect and maintain. It's anytime you're doing something repeated with your customer. Derek, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and that question might be coming up because some folks in the fire industry won't set up their recurring schedule until they might do their first annual, right? You're taking on liability. You're taking on a whole new system, and you want to establish your annual regardless of when the last vendor did it. And so for some folks, you don't send that schedule over right when you sell it. And that's why that I didn't show all the clicks, but that wizard of send to service trade, it sends the customer and assets first. Because I might send that over and then my service team, because I want to do an annual first, that's just a one-time annual, I'll just set that job up, do my annual inspection, then tell my or set up an automation to go, hey, now that we've done that annual and we've confirmed this customer, let's go back into Sales Manager and finish the services, invoices, and contract over, and maybe even establish the date that it starts today, rather the day that we after the first inspection or the day of the first inspection, rather than the day they signed. So it just would be a slightly different workflow, and I hope that answered your question.
Great, thank you. Next question is, what's the fastest way to get our existing customer and prospect data imported into Sales Manager?
I give it to you, Derek.
Yeah, I was reading a question. Repeat that for me one more time. I'm so sorry.
Yes. What's the fastest way to get our existing customer and prospect data imported into Sales Manager?
Great question. So, it's a standard part of our implementation process. So if you onboarded with us for Sales Manager, leads, your proposal templates, your customers, that's all a standard part of the process, bringing that data in for you. But post implementation, you might get a new lead list. On that lead list section I was showing you all that list it, there's an import button. It's as simple as take a list, maybe change some columns, import it in. Now you have a lead list. For your service trade customers, it's even better because you might win some new customers through repair work, right? So someone might literally just call in and you go into service trade and you add a new customer, but you want to automatically bring that over into sales manager. That's a simple click. Hey, I want to bring this new customer because I want to do an inspection proposal for them. Boom, they come over. And that's how actually we bring over your service trade customers. We just go,
Yeah. And I did touch a little bit on the API aspect of things. So, if you do want to connect a third-party software, if you're using a Salesforce, a HubSpot currently, or something else, you will be able to build out a connection there where you can connect and have a data stream there from leads, contacts, companies, opportunities, and again, fit Sales Manager into your existing workflows as well.
Great. Uh, Next question, how long does it typically take for a sales rep to get up and running once they've been onboarded?
As far as getting them into the system, adding a user takes minutes. Especially if they're already an existing ServiceTrade user, they can use the same login to just access both systems. So creating the user is the easy part. Boom, we create the user. Then we also have ServiceTrade Academy. And for those of you who don't know, we have an entire online course with over 100 courses dedicated to helping enable and train your end users. So we have about 2 to 3 hours of sales manager courses. I think about an hour and a half specifically for sales users. So create the user, an hour and a half of training. Now the unknown part is your own SOPs. We already started to touch on that of, hey, we might do it this way or you might do it this way. So it's dependent on how long it takes to onboard them to the other stuff and the other software that you have in the system. But comparing, hey, showing them, hey, this is where you copy spreadsheets, this is where you copy Word documents, here's the SharePoint file where we keep that, here's the third-party software we use over here, here's the ServiceTrade thing that you can reference and pull over. It's going to be a lot faster than that model for sure because they really just know to go to a place, click these buttons in this order. Great. And then I can send my approvals to these people. I get my signatures to these people. I click this button when I'm done. So the onboarding can be really simple if you just write down those steps for them.
Great. And then one that just came in, are the contracts able to be renewed each year with a price increase inflation slash inflation without recreating a new contract from scratch or being able to reactivate an old contract that may have been delayed? There, no thanks.
That was a little long.
Yeah, well, let's just take those one at a time. Are the contracts able to be renewed each year with a price increase slash inflation added without recreating a new contract from scratch?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there's a full whole renewals function on the maintenance page, and there's also notifications that trigger salespeople when it's a maintenance proposal is within 30 days of renewal. And you can either simply copy the last year's proposal and just put in escalations, just change your pricing slightly, or you can bring in your service trade assets and rebuild it. Most people I see just simply copy it and then just do like a 3% increase and then they're done because it's going to look to your most recent markups.
Great. They also asked about being able to reactivate an old contract that may have been delayed. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, that's probably, hey, we sold the inspection, but the customer called for reasons and was like, okay, we can't start service now. Can we push it back? Um, that would be a matter of because we sent all that. It depends on what moment that comes up. Because if you've already hit that send to service trade button, then you're just going to have to update your field service team to adjust those dates in service trade. But if it's before that, you would just adjust it on the proposal and then hit that send. And that's kind of speaking to that one workflow I was talking about that comes up a lot where people will just send the customer's assets first and then they might send those last three when they know for a fact they need to start service.
All right. And then one that just came in, can you set up monitoring only contracts that do not require on-site or physical services just to streamline contract creation and set up recurring invoicing?
Yeah, you saw it on my service programs. And the biggest difference is you're simply setting over the recurring invoice and not the service.
Thank you. All right, looks like we have our final question. How does Sales Manager handle quoting for recurring inspections agreements versus one-time project work? And can we manage both from it?
Yes. So we only focused on one part of the CPQ today, which was that inspection configure price quote piece. There's another whole component in this system specifically geared for pricing projects like larger scale projects that need to be broken up into different individual worksheets that may have different phases of work. Um, or our simple deficiency quoting method. So the system actually exposes service trade deficiencies. So if you want your sales team to live in an all-in-one system, the project also has a light repair proposal as well. So you can just go, hey, I'm pulling these four deficiencies over. I'm adding them to a project. I'm throwing in, just like in service trade, templates like kits to throw in my pricing. I send it to customer, and then you're off to the races.
Great. Those are all the questions that we have. Thank you both.
Awesome. One second. I'm gonna just reshare real quick as we get ready to wrap up. Okay, should all be seeing a Q&A screen here. So thank you everybody for joining today. If you're a current ServiceTrade customer and you want to learn more, please reach out to your account manager or customer success manager. We can set up a private demo. If you're a first-time visitor and you're not a current customer, feel free to book a time with us. In the webinar survey you're going to get after we finish here, you can go ahead and ask for a follow-up, and we'll make sure to follow up with you. And again, thanks for the time, Derek. Thanks everybody who's here. Thank you, Garrett, everybody else from the ServiceTrade team who's here. And I hope everybody else has a great day. I hope we all have a great day.
Thank you.